Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Industrial IoT Connectivity Theatre with myself, Richard Jeffers, and Ben Botwright, and we're just going to talk through a case study of deploying industrial IoT on a wastewater treatment plant. So, start off with a little bit of introductions. First of all, myself, I work for RS Components, heading up our industrial IoT team. Living in Newcastle, greatest place on earth. And my background is on the customer side. So I spent most of my career in operations and maintenance. So I've run factories, built factories, maintained factories, and knocked factories down. And then for the last 4 years, I've been heading up the development of industrial IoT propositions in RS. So moving over to the service provider side of the world.
Okay. Afternoon, everyone. My name's Ben Botwright. I'm engineering manager at Kerry Foods, based in Tenbury, Wales, in Worcestershire. I've been an apprentice-trained engineer in various engineering and operational roles in a number of different companies, S&N, Heineken, Westlands, and now Kerry. And I've been with Kerry since June of last year. One of my key objectives was to see how we can look at improving what we do on site, but doing it in a simple way to get wins in a quick basis. And today what I do is just want to share with you some of the successes we've had around that field.
Thanks, Ben. So do you want to start off by taking us through your problem that you asked us to help you solve?
Yeah. So the factory at Tenbury has been operational for approaching 80 years now, and as a result there's a lot of legacy issues. Historically, the site has always invested in key areas, but there's some areas that have been left around the periphery, and whilst they work, they've been left alone, and the effluent treatment plant is one of those. The site itself produces a wide range of products. Generally we produce sweet and fruit-based products, so be it syrups for coffees, fruit for yogurts, or milkshakes for well-known fast food restaurants. As a result, we undertake a lot of small volume runs, but the runs themselves are generally high sugar, high COD, which cause quite a lot of problem from a COD perspective, which then puts pressure on our effluent plant. We're regularly doing CIPs, and as a result of that, we're putting a lot of pressure on the actual plant itself. So here's just a very simple schematic of what the wastewater treatment plant is. It's spread out over the site. We've got a 35-acre site, and a lot of this equipment is spread out in remote locations. There's been fairly limited investment over the time, although we have been replacing assets as they've failed. We did have a lot of installed meters, so on a lot of the equipment we were able to look at some maybe run signals, Vega, level sensors, flow detectors, pH meters, but none of it was connected. And all of this resulted in a lot of stress and a lot of frustration from a maintenance team, which we'll go on to next. So the plant itself demanded a lot of time and a lot of resources. We spent a lot of time, a lot of my maintenance engineers' time was spent up to sort of 2-3 hours a day just babysitting the plant, making sure that we were staying in compliance. Process control was very reactive. Up until the start of last year, our pH control was done manually, which I'm sure you can appreciate is very, very challenging indeed. And as a result, we spent a lot of time trying to maintain compliance. And normally what people would be doing would be they'd be seeing and maintaining the effluent plant as opposed to doing some of the more vital value-add PMs and whatnot. And quite often the work that was planned by the planned maintenance engineers was then interrupted by plant alarms. We did have some automation on the plant. There was a small single location HMI within the workshop, but if somebody wasn't in eyesight of it, then it was a challenge and it was missed. And I think probably one other thing to add, within my team, within the frustration element of it, looking after the effluent treatment plant was often seen as a hospital pass. So there was a lot of frustration of guys winding people up, and people would always choose the better jobs first, and whoever was last from a PM perspective would end up picking up and maintaining the plant.
Thanks, Ben. So do you want to just flick to the next slide and talk us through how we then helped you solve your problem?
Yeah. So within the plant itself, there was, as I mentioned, there was quite a lot of equipment that had the capability to be connected, to be linked together, but we weren't doing anything with it. So things like the level detectors on all of the silos, things like the level detectors on the caustic and acid tank, things like pH correction, all of which had data that was available to it, but because it was very widespread across the plant, and because it was on a wide variety of different platforms, some of it Siemens, some of it Adam Bradley, some of it even on ancient Mitsubishi type PLCs. When we first started, nothing was connected together. So what we looked to do with the use of RS was actually, through RS, was identify all the critical assets that we wanted to control, and then work closely with the team to see how we could get connectivity to it. And with that, it was typically quite a straightforward solution, in that we're able to connect into the equipment, and we're able to bring it back to a single Ethernet-enabled PLC. We were then able to connect into the edge gateway and then export the data outwards and then receive it back on our compliance dashboards, on mobile phones, and in various other technologies.
And one of the areas that we supported Ben on was around understanding how to translate that data, how to translate it from different operational technology protocols into a single IT protocol, and also about how to take data from a serial outputs as well as from digital outputs and get that data into the platform as well.
Okay. So what it enabled us to do was essentially, by starting to harvest the data from our effluent treatment plant, we were able to link it up real time with what was actually going on in the factory. And for the first time, we're able to make a step change from being very reactive to actually starting to be proactive. So by taking things like the silo levels, we're able to predict where some of our biggest loadings were and how the plant was running. By taking the pH trend operation, we were able to link in what were the biggest CIPs and what were the biggest variations that were causing issues on our effluent discharge. The same for COD. We had a basic TOC analyzer in place, but we weren't able to take the data from it and harvest it and bring it together with all the data streams together. And through that, we're able to link up with big COD demands that were hitting, or events that were hitting our plant. We were able then to link that up with events in the factory, and then essentially give the decision making and the data back to the factory, so that we could then start to challenge, okay, well, why are we losing this? Because eventually every loss we had from a COD perspective was sugar, was product going down the drain. And eventually it was a cost-saving opportunity. Other things we're able to track, such as the status of the pumps, into live update tables, so we're able to see what's running, duty, what's standby, and able to link that in some of our maintenance regimes in terms of hours run. And one of the most important things was continuous monitoring of trends. So if something happened, because the site generally was a 24/5 operation, if something happened during the time period where the plant was unmanned, we're able to go back and find out what happened and look at the data. And more importantly, when we had regulatory challenges, then we've been able to go back through and really analyse the data and be confident as to whether we have actually caused an issue or not. So the data trending was very, very useful, and it enabled us to make a step change within the factory. Also, what we're able to do through the RS platform was to link connectivity not only for a PC desktop, but also for a mobile phone. So not only can I see on a mobile phone the same things I can see on my PC desktop, but we can also get active alarms that are sent out in the form of SMS messages or emails to trigger if there's an issue. So if we have a COD breach, if we have a breach in pH, if the plant stops for any time period, what we've been able to do is transform that. Instead of it being with one person sat or having to sit within the workshop, we can now send those alarms out to a wide range of different people to enable to react. And not only can we then stabilise the plant, but we can also start the investigation and the root cause analysis straight away.
And we work very closely, but my technology team work very closely not just with Ben, but with members of his operational team as well, to understand exactly how they want to see the data, what data is important to them, and what limits and alarms they want to have in there. So it was a very iterative, collaborative approach in terms of how we built this solution.
So just looking at some of the operational benefits, I think the main things for us the main benefits for us really were real-time visibility of data, being able to understand how the plant was reacting, but more importantly to be able to link that back into production. And that link has been a massive step change and an enabler for us to bring about behavioural change in the factory, be able to challenge people as to why stuff was going down the drain in the first place. The system prompts when intervention is required. So for us, we know that if our pH has gone high, because our acid is dosed in via an IBC, for example, we don't have monitoring on it, but we know when the pH goes high, we know that the acid tank has run out and the plant needs to be replenished. In terms of other things we've been able to do, is it's really enabled us to switch from a reactive approach onto a proactive approach, and we can now get into early intervention and control. We've been able to analyse the trends, analyse what's been causing us the issues, and then put things in place to prevent it from happening in the first place. And I guess overall, from my perspective, this is the biggest one. There's a lot fewer hours spent now on managing the plant. There's a lot of buy-in from the team, and more importantly, it's then brought about improved morale. So the team is able to focus on maintenance and the value-added tasks rather than babysitting the wastewater treatment plant. And ultimately, it's turned from being the hospital pass. The guys really love actually now looking at the trends and checking that everything's okay and linking in to production to be able to feedback what's gone well. If it hasn't gone well, or we think we've come close to breaching, then we've been able to trigger that investigation.
And in fact, last time I was on site a few months back, one of the engineers came in whilst we were fiddling with the control panel and actually said, thanks very much for putting this solution in, it's made my life easier.
So some of the results for us, overall it's been about compliance. So the main aim for this was ultimately we've got a legacy plant, we've got an aging plant, we know at some point we're going to need to replace it, but this in principle has bought us time to be able to pause and get the right solution before we move forward. And whatever we do in the future, definitely will be speccing the same RS system and moving that onto our new wastewater treatment plant. The benefits we've seen is that the pH levels are stabilised. We've been able to identify certain things and change our processes out in the factory, which means that the wastewater plant itself, from a compliance perspective, is in a much better place. We've seen a 5% reduction in water usage. Our default position in terms of reducing our COD was just to put water in. And it costs us, let's say, 75 pence per metre cubed for that water to come into the factory. It then costs another £3.30 to send it down the drain again. So it just didn't make good financial sense to deal in that way. And again, by understanding the trends, by using this system, by connecting to the information we already had, we've been able to make a step change in that. And the other one is then reducing our COD levels. As I said before, by using this information, we've been able to get it out into the factory, so that the production manager gets an alarm, gets a text message if we breach from a CAD perspective. He then starts the investigation straight away with his production team. And before I used to have to send the email out, and it was like pulling teeth trying to get information back on why something had happened. Now, when the events happen, I'm already starting to get emails and people feeding in as to what's going wrong. So that behavioural change has been, by having the right data and make the decisions, has been fantastic.
So Ben, what next steps have you got planned?
So the effluent treatment plant was really the first phase for us. It was about starting to see how we can use the RS Industria, I guess IoT, to connect into assets that we've already got and start to collect data. We've started to look elsewhere and see where we've already got a similar situation where we've either got meters that we're not collecting information from, or for very low cost investment. And the next phase for us has been on water. And again, some of the improvements we've seen, 5% from reduction in water that's used to dilute COD on the effluent plant. We've been able to take and harvest data on our water metering and take that further, and again give the data back to production staff. The significant thing for us on utilities, so water and electricity, we had meters in place. We just weren't doing anything with them. So for a very low cost solution, I've just essentially been able to connect into a Ethernet enabled PLC. We've been able to take that data real time and start to do something with it. Our next steps are to expand it out into steam. So we've got a reasonably aging boiler house, but we've got meters and instrumentation there that we can start to connect to, start to get some basic information back. At the moment, for example, in the boiler house, we measure our fuel consumption in tankers rather than anything else. So it's about starting to get that data back, use some simple data and tools for decision making. What we've also been able to do is on the effluent plant, because some of the assets are critical, we've been able to link in some basic condition monitoring on some of the critical assets. So now not only do we know how the plant's performing, we've also got a measure on some of our critical assets from a reliability perspective, and we've got alerts set up in the same way.
So Ben was one of our early adopter customers. We started implementing in January, and I think probably had most of the benefits coming through by June. But that included quite a large period of time of us working away from some of our customer issues. One of the particular challenges we had was around secure connection to the cloud, and Ben was kind enough to present us with a problem that even our AWS solution architects hadn't seen before. So, but it was been a genuine sort of multi-team approach of working with Kerry as the customer, my team, and then with AWS as our technical partner to bring a secure solution that gives the benefits that Ben's talked about.
Okay.
So thanks very much for listening, and if anybody has any questions now, we can take those. If not, and you want to continue the conversations in a smaller group, please come and join us in our coffee bar behind the screen.
Excellent, thank you very much. What sort of investment roughly did you have to put into this, and what sort of payback do you reckon you'll have with this?
From an investment perspective, I think in terms of getting the systems operational, has been somewhere between about 5 and 8k in terms of installation, cabling, and whatnot, PLC. And then as part of the system, once it's up and running, we have a monthly fee that we pay as part of a fee into RS.
So around about £1,000.
So from a payback perspective, it's months. It's not years. It's been months. But I think the main thing is it's been quite a pain-free way to get data from our systems. We did have, as Richard alluded to, we did have some issues from an IT policy. We're quite a big company, so trying to get information through the firewall, through AWS gave us a few challenges initially, and we did have to work at it, but we did get buy-in again from our ICT on terms of how we're going to do it going forward. But certainly, while we've looked at extending it, it's been a real cost-effective solution to some real-life problems, and we've got a lot of quick wins and a lot of support for it going forward.
And our entire focus around our proposition is about small steps, modularity. So we're not looking to present our customers with hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of bills. We're looking to say you can start this journey, simply within your existing maintenance budget, rather than having to look out and hold out for the pain of putting a CapEx application in. Any other questions? Well, thanks very much for your attention, and if you want to have any follow-up conversations, you'll see quite a few of us in red tops around the show, and as I said, coffee bar next door.